Hi everybody, Steven here. In this video, we're going to cover part 2 of our VPC series. So in this episode, we're going to look at VMware Cloud Foundation version 9 VPCs. We're going to take a closer look at those, but more importantly, we're going to take a look at the different subnets that we can have. Make sure you look at part 1 first. So we'll see you in a bit. Bye for now. Hi everyone, thanks for sticking around. So this is going to be part 2 of our two-part series there on VMware Cloud Foundation version 9 VPCs. This one should be a little quick, but hey, I always say that in all my videos, don't I? So this one we're going to take a look at VPCs, and we'll look at the different subnets, and we've got a little bit of lecture component here, not much, and then we'll jump right into the demo, and I'll do it both with the centralized transit gateway and with the distributed. For the most part, it's pretty much the same, except for underneath the covers. We'll take a look at that. Anyways, always like to throw this out at this point. For those of you that subscribe to the channel, thank you very much. 10 thumbs up to you folks. Really appreciate it. And for those of you that have also done super thanks, really appreciate that as well. For those of you that watch the channel, if this is something that you're interested in, please consider supporting the channel. Without subscribers, there's no content developers, right? So if this is stuff that you value, just click that subscribe button. It's totally free. You just click on it. Other ways to support the channel is sharing it, liking it, leaving comments down below. All that stuff helps out with the YouTube analytics. And I also have super thanks enabled, but that's totally up to you. Well, that's enough for now. So why don't we jump right into it? So let's get started here. In the previous video, I did talk about projects, but I'm just going to mention it real quick again here so we're all on the same page. So NSX has this concept called projects. We use these projects and VPCs to do isolation of our tenants in our environment. As I mentioned before, projects have been around for a while now, version 4. Whatever. And again, it allowed me to do isolation of my tenants. So I can make you the administrator of project A, somebody else administrator of project B. And then when you sign into your project, you can create tier 1 gateways, segments, all that stuff, and it wouldn't impact anybody else in other projects. But with projects, you had to know NSX. So then they upped the ante a bit, and they came out with these things called VPC, virtual private clouds, right? Where basically it's more of a self-service portal, okay? So again, a project, let's just jump right in here. So a VPC now, a project is a self-contained private network within NSX projects, and contains 3 elements. You'll generally have a VPC gateway. We see this in this picture right here. I've got a couple of projects. I've got a VPC inside each. You can have more than one VPC per project if you want to. This is what I want to show you here is the VPC gateway. This is, hint, hint, a little tier 1 gateway kind of underneath the covers. So, and then you create subnets that connect to that. And again, if you're familiar with NSX, those are segments, overlay segments, okay? This VPC connects to a transit gateway. We talked about that in part 1, so make sure you watch that. And our transit gateway can be centralized or it can be distributed. So I'm not going to talk about that now. Watch the other video, right? You can have one or multiple subnets inside your VPC, depending on how many workloads you have in your environment, right? You could also have various services such as network address translation, gateway firewall, if you have the vDefend license, and load balancer. For the vDefend, one of the things I talked about in the previous video, though, again, the gateway firewall doesn't work with the distributed transit gateway because there's no edge cluster there, okay? So now the big thing here, so we've had VPCs, we've had projects in NSX 4.2. whatever, okay? So what's the big deal today? In VMware Cloud Foundation version 9, it actually brings it more of a self-service portal via your vSphere client. So today, within the vSphere client, we can create VPCs, and that's the whole point of this video. So I'll show you how to do it there. Okay. Now, as I mentioned in my first video, I do have videos on projects and VPCs from I did it on NSX 4.2.1. You can watch those; they're still applicable. There are some differences, though. Okay, just to be on the safe side. Yeah, we'll come to subnets in a minute. Let's create a VPC. All right, so let's just jump right into here. All right, let's begin. So I'm actually connected to my vCenter server in my management domain. Like again, this could be your workload domain, whatever. As I mentioned in my first video, I basically created a centralized gateway, transit gateway in my management, and I did a decentralized in my workload, just to show you the differences, right? So if I select my vCenter server here under network connectivity, you'll see again, it's a centralized. Pay attention to these addresses here. The external address, VP external is 10.1.1.0. That's the block externally. And the private transit gateway blocks are 172.16.200. Pay attention to those. Let's create a VPC. Let's go into the networking view. Let's go to VPC, our virtual private clouds. And, well, it says none here anyways. So let's right click and say new VPC. Let's create a new one called sales VPC. Now I could do this within NSX if I wanted to, but the whole point is to make this self-provisioning type portal. You can give it a description if you want to, right? Then you specify the private IP address. This is the range, the CIDR for this VPC. This can overlap with others, right? So this is like the private block for this VPC. I'm gonna do 192.168. Let's say 200.0/24. That's gonna be private. And then over here says connectivity and services. Let's check that out. I'll click on there and it shows me what services are available to this VPC. Notice the external block, that was 10.1.1. Notice the private private transit gateway blocks. That's that 172 that I pointed out. Those are already done. Notice it's centralized. Notice we have north-south services, like if we want to do firewall, let's say, we have that capability, so I'm not licensed. Outbound NAT, we have a default outbound NAT there as well. It says you can modify these settings from within the NSX interface. The reason why everything is enabled here is because I'm doing a centralized transit gateway active standby mode. Okay, remember the little chart I showed you in part one? You need to watch that one. So let me say close, and I'm done. I just created a VPC. Well, hang on a second. Let's let it churn a little bit before I jump the gun here, right? Come on. There we go. We do see sales VPC here. There we go. Took a little bit of time there. So you see sales VPC. Let's create another one. Let's go new VPC. Just going to create a new one here called engineering-VPC. We're going to make its private be 192.168. I said 200 on the last one, 210.0/24. And again, we'll just save that. Okay. That private one could have technically been the same block as the sales one, because it's internal to that VPC, so you can't have overlapping between VPCs. Great. There's our VPCs. You'll see over here I got 2 VPCs. Beautiful. Now what do I do with that? Well, the whole point here is now you can actually go in here and create subnets. For those of you familiar with NSX, those are segments. But again, they changed the term subnet to make things easier from a self-provisioning portal. So if I right click on engineering and I'll say new subnet, then it's going to ask you for a name. Once it comes up, it'll ask you for the name of it and the type of subnet. So I'm going to call this engineering-public. And there's 3 different types. You can go private VPC, private transit gateway, public. Let's take a look at this for a second. Let's go to my iPad. Let me stop my recording, come back. Okay, I always like to break up my recordings. Let's go into my iPad here. And let's talk about the different subnets we have, okay? So you basically can have private subnet, private VPC, or private transit gateway. What this means is a public subnet. Remember that external block or that external IP range? In this example, it says 172.20.10. When you create a public subnet and you attach VMs to that, it's going to pull an IP address from that pool of IPs. All right, and we'll see that when I do my demo. So now here they talk about no NAT, no NAT, no NAT. When I look here in my little picture here, it says east-west communication within the VPC. We're not doing any network address translation. So within the VPC itself, if there's other subnets I wanted to talk to, again, we're not doing any network address translation. East-west from VPC to VPC, again, there's no network address translation. Sorry about that. I tried to hit the pause button before I sneezed. Anyways, and then north-south, in and out, north of the transit gateway, we're not doing any network address translation. So you're getting a public address, okay? And it's routable. Now, you could do, the next one I always like to look at is the private VPC. That's that one where you specified your private block. So when I went in and I demoed for sales and engineering, that means that that VM is going to get an IP from that block. So in this example here, do they show it to me? No, they don't. Oh yeah, it's right here. So here's the private block. Sorry about that, bouncing around. So this VM is going to get an IP from this block here. Okay. Now, when this VM is talking to other VMs within this VPC, there's no network address translation. It's within the VPC. If they're east-west across VPCs, yeah, we're going to be doing NATing here, okay, network address translation, in order for them to talk. Again, that's if your firewall rules allow it, but we're not talking about security in this one. And last but not least, if this VM wants to talk to the outside world, again, we're going to have to do network address translation as well, okay? So the outside world won't see that VM's internal address. Now, the other one here is private transit gateway, is a private subnet, private transit gateway subnet. Sorry about that. And we specified that when we created our transit gateway, right? So what it's doing here, we have that block for the transit gateway. The VM is going to get an IP from that block. So now it's saying here, east-west within the VPC, there's no NATing. East-west across VPCs, there's no NATing. So the IP of the VM is preserved. Okay. Whereas in this one over here, the IP got NATed. And then north-south, yeah, we have to do network address translation. So it depends on what you want in your environment. If you need to expose the VM's IP address for everything, then you may go public, or if you don't want to expose it at all, then you would basically do private type of thing. So those are kind of your three choices here. So let's go back to, is there anything else I want to mention? Yeah, no, there isn't. So let's go back to the actual environment there. Okay, so I'm going to pick public I'm going to create a subnet, and I'm going to call it engineering public, and we'll make it public. Now it's asking me auto allocate the IP addresses to this public subnet. Remember that range, the public range, that's what that's saying. Pull something from there automatically. I can say no, and I can say I want to put in a CIDR of my own. So I can say this VPC will use this range within that other range, okay? So you can do something like that. I'm going to say no, go ahead and auto allocate it. How much do I want to allocate to the subnet? Again, this is the size, the subnet size. I'm just going to make it small with 16. Advanced settings. Gateway connectivity. This would be kind of silly if I selected public, but anyways, what this is in version NSX 4.2, anyways, prior to VCF 9 and NSX, when I created VPCs, I could create what's called an isolated subnet. You don't see that choice here. So you would pick one of these and then say over here, don't connect it to the gateway. Now at that point, it's a segment that's not connected to a gateway, so it's isolated, all right? So that's what that is. I'm going to say, no, I don't want to isolate. How do I want to assign IPs to the VM on that subnet? Maybe I want to do static. Maybe I want to do a DHCP server, okay? Or maybe I want to do DHCP relay, right? If I click on this, let's scroll down. External DHCP server. I don't have an external DHCP server. So you can pick that as if you want to, right? So a relay basically takes any request on your DHCP request on your network, fires it off to centralized DHCP server, and then the reply would come back. I'm going to pick DHCP server here. Basically what I'm saying here is I'm saying, hey, NSX, allocate addresses from that public range from that transit gateway for this VPC. So again, we'll come back and look at that. So I'm going to create engineering public. I'm going to go next. Here it comes up. I can look at more DHCP options if I want. If I want to reserve ranges or set any other type of DHCP options or bindings, I could do that. All right. I'm just going to say, no, I'm going to go with the defaults. I'm going to go next, and then I'm finished. And what did I just do there? I actually created a subnet. What did it do underneath the covers? It's actually going out to NSX and creating a segment. Okay. So here we see under sales, it was engineering VPC. Under engineering, I got public there. I'll open that up and you'll see. So there's the subnet. I always get confused. Look, why do I see it repeated twice? This is the subnet. This is the port group. And you connect VMs to the port groups. So I could actually add a VM to here. I could do it this way, migrate VMs, but let's do it like this. Let me go to a VM here. I got a VM called Engineering Public. Let's right click on it. And actually I probably should have powered it off. Doesn't really matter. I'll reboot it. Let's go into edit settings. Oh, you're not letting me edit settings. Right click. Where you edit settings. There's a couple ways. So then you vSphere administrators would be familiar with this. There's my network card on my VM. I'm going to browse. Notice over here VPCs, I see Engineering Public. So I'm going to select that now. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to say OK. I'm just going to restart this VM just because it's set up for DHCP. Guys, come on. Let's try guess OS. Restart. Okay. Let's forget about that one. We'll come right back to it. I'm going to repeat the process. And I'm going to create a couple more VPCs, okay? Let's create another one for, under Engineering VPC. Let's right-click. Let's go New Subnet. Let's create, come on, I'll call it Engineering-Private. And it'll be Private VPC. I'll select that. Again, everything else I'm going to keep the same here. So I selected before. I'm going to pick DHCP here. And I'm going to say next, next, and I'm done. So there's Engineering Private. I'm going to do another one, Engineering Private Transit Gateway, all right? So come on, here we go, right-click, and New Subnet, and we'll call this Engineering Private Dash Transit Gateway. And we'll pick Private Transit Gateway, again, just to make a small range here. I'll do DHCP, and then next, next, and I'm done. And I'm going to put some VMs on there. Now, what I'll probably do, so you don't have to watch me do this multiple times, I'm going to do the same thing with the sales VPC. I'm going to create some subnets and sales, and I'll put some VMs on it, okay? And I'll be right back, and I'll show you what I've done. Stick around. Okay, so we're back. I actually went in, and again, I got my engineering VPC. I got the engineering, actually I spelled that wrong. Oh well, engineering private subnet, engineering private transit gateway subnet, engineering public. If I click on the private one, you'll see I got a VM on there called Eng Private, engineering private, and then another one called engineering private transit gateway. And I get a VM on each of these subnets, right? And you can see that for sales as well, okay? If I go here, you'll actually see the VMs. Now, let's just go back and let's look at engineering public. Notice the IP address, 10.1.1.19. That's engineering public. Where did it get that IP from? So if I go back to networking view, sorry, I didn't have to go networking view. If I select my vCenter server, here's my transit gateway, external IP block, 10.1.1. Great. So it pulled it, the public subnet pulled it from that pool for both sales and engineering. Let's just confirm that. Let's go back to, there's engineering is 10.1.1.19. And then we're a sales public, 10.1.1.35. Great. Let's look at the engineering private transit gateway. I got 172.16.200.3 and sales private got 172.16.200.19. Let's go and take a look at this. Again, the private transit gateway, 172.16.200. So it pulled it from that pool. Now, engineering private, if I look at engineering private, it got 192.168.210.3. Sales private, if I click on that, 192.168.200.3. So these are pulled from the VPC's private network that we set up. Let's go back into here. Let's go to engineering VPC. Under summary, you see there is the private CIDR for engineering and the private CIDR, come on, and the private CIDR for sales. They could overlap if I wanted to, okay? Now, what did it do under the covers with NSX? That's curious, right? Oh, one thing I want to show you here, let's go back into network view. Let's click VPCs. Let's click on configure. You'll see topology. This is kind of nice. Shows you the topology of the environment. So you'll see there's my sales, VPC, engineering, and you'll see the different subnets and the VMs attached to it. That's kind of neat. Just make sure you select VPC over here. So I'll just minimize those. What did it do underneath the covers? Let's go into NSX. Let's log into my NSX manager for my management domain. That's what we're using here. And there's a couple of things in here that I've noticed a little different from version 4.2. I don't know if I like it or not. I'll leave it up to you folks. I'm going to skip that. Let's go into VPCs. That makes sense. Let's take a look at VPCs. You'll see there's 2 VPCs. I'll click on that. You'll see there's engineering and sales. Let's edit one of them. If I go in and edit, you'll see, again, there's the name of it. There's the connectivity profile and the service profile. I wonder what those are. Okay. You'll see there's the private CIDR for it. And then some tags. Under advanced settings here, again, you can enable it for the AVI load balancer if you want to play with that, right? So I got my connectivity profiles and service profiles. If I go into here, let's exit from here, under VPC profiles, you'll see the default transit gateway. Here's my service profiles. If I open that up, that's the default one for DHCP and stuff. There's a security profile. Well, right now it's turned off, right? I don't have a gateway firewall. Under the default here, we see the external IP block that we talked about, and then we see the private address block that we talked about. All that stuff we created when we created the transit gateway. What else here? Now, these are subnets, right? The subnets are NSX segments. This is kind of the part that I'm kind of not a big fan of. When I click on networking here, you'll see under segments, I don't see them there, all right? If I click on tier 1 gateways, I don't see them there. If I click on all the tier 0s we see from the transit gateways, right? So I don't really see it here. I'm under my default project, okay? Now, let's go into NSX and let's take a look within NSX itself. Actually, I got to enable SSH on it because I didn't enable it. Bear with me 1 second here. So it's actually a VM that's running. Actually, what am I doing? Don't have to do it there. I was thinking of something different. Let's go into here. Where's my NSX Manager 01? Let's go to the console. So this is in the workload domain. Sorry, management domain. Type in admin. I can just run the command here. Come on. If I type in get logical switches, it's probably going to wrap around. Yeah, it's going to wrap around. There's a bunch of transit networks here, but we can see towards the bottom, I can't highlight it. You'll see there's a sales private, sales public, engineering public. So you actually see it's kind of like hidden switches. Again, the proper command would probably be typing get segments, and it would show that to me. So you see it towards the bottom: sales private, public, engineering public, sales private, TWG. So they're actually kind of hidden. I know in 4.2.1, there was an option here, a little checkbox you can click on to see all your VPC subnets. I don't see it here. Kind of a sore point for me anyways. So it does relate back to that. Let's go back to NSX here and let's type in get gateways. It's going to probably wrap around. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to type in, what is it? Start service SSH. It'd be easier for us to view it like this. Don't do this if your security folks don't want you enabling SSH. Okay, so I just started it. Let's go into my NSX Manager. NSX Manager loads at the right one. Come on. Yeah, we'll log into some in. We'll see things a little bit better here. I'll make this a little bit bigger for everybody to see. Appearance change. Let's go 12. A little bit better. Okay, so let's type in, just like I did before, get gateways. Did I spell that right? Gateways. Oh, you know what, I'm just going to use the command get logical dash routers. So we see here it's still doing a little bit of wrapping around. Let's fix that. Let's try it again. There we go. Okay, so you'll now see, remember we created sales VPC and engineering VPC. You'll see sales VPC SR component. You'll see SR component for the mansion. Those are the transit gateways, which we've seen already before, right? Transit gateway, transit. But you'll see there's a DR component. Oh, sorry, right here. So SR for engineering VPC, DR for engineering VPC. There's an SR for sales VPC and a DR for sales VPC. Notice when I highlight, it's a hidden tier 1 gateway. It's really it's a gateway. It's a tier 1 gateway. So again, kind of understanding your tier 1 gateways and tier 0 gateways are kind of important. So that's basically what happens when that person creates a VPC. NSX makes a tier 1 gateway and connects it to that transit gateway, which essentially is a tier 0 gateway from our previous video. So that's kind of neat. So we see that underneath the covers. Now, I want to show you one more thing. I'm going to create a segment on my other one, on my workload domain, a subnet, my other workload domain, and then we'll see kind of what's going on underneath the cover. So we'll be right back on that one. Okay, so in my previous, I wanted to point this out because in my previous video, we created on my workload domain, we created a distributed transit gateway. Then when we looked at the host, we didn't see anything implemented on the host. So if I actually SSH into host 5 and log in as root, we didn't really see anything. Get transit gateways. Oops, sorry. NSX CLI. Get transit gateways. I think that was the command I ran. Did all the typos. I didn't really see anything there because nothing was instantiated on that host. Let's do a couple quick things here real fast. Let's go in and create a VPC. Let's right click, new VPC. I'll call this one accounting. Accounting-VPC. And the CIDR for accounting will be 192.168. I don't know, we'll say 230.0/24. And again, I'm going to say save. And come on. Actually, I didn't show you the view details. Let me just do another one real fast here. There we go. If I actually right click, new VPC, you give it a name. View details here, you'll see again north-south services and outbound NATs off because there's no edge cluster. Okay, and again that's one of the limitations of the distributed transit gateway. So there's my VPC. Let's create a new subnet. I'll call it I don't know, accounting-private. How about that? We'll make it private. Again, I'll just say auto allocate. We'll say advance, and good enough from here. So I've now created a subnet, which is a segment. Now we're going to attach a VM to it, okay? Let's go in and attach a VM. I got accounting, it was private, right? I'll go in there, edit settings. Let's go to the network adapter. Let's put it on that subnet, a VPC subnet, and say okay. So there we go. Now let's power on this VM. Power on, okay? And just by chance, it is actually on host 5. I might have had it run there before. It's on host 5. Let's go back and run that command again. We actually see there's the transit gateway. Okay, so that's kind of neat. How about this? Get logical. I know it's deprecated the command, but get logical dash routers. And I actually see there's two here. One's gonna be the transit gateway. One's gonna be the tier 1 for that VPC, but you see the UUID is over here, right? So that's not the most prettiest way. I'm on the actual ESXi host. Let's go into NSX Manager and look at it. So this is my NSX Manager for my workload domain, which is something a bit different. Manager B, let's load that. Is that the right one? Yeah, open. And log in as admin. So we see there, come on, let's type in, come on, get gate gateways. Did I type that mess up? No, I didn't. Here we see the two. We see the DR for the accounting VPC, and we see the transit gateway. And there's the UUIDs, F88, 287. Let's go back to here. Does that look right? Yeah, so they match up, okay? So that's that. Now, one more thing I want to show you is before you take off, hey, if you haven't already subscribed, subscribe. Let me close this. Let me close that. And does that mean, well, NSX administrators don't manage projects and VPCs anymore? Absolutely not. You can. I don't need this one open, so let's get out of there. Let's go back to my management domain. I'm in my management domain over here. So there's network. There's our VPCs we created, okay? And then over here you see VPCs. There's the ones that we created. In vSphere, it says none. And then over here we have our distributed switch. Let's go into NSX. Let's go. There's only one project as the default project. Your VPCs created in vCenter will go into the default project by default. Let's create a new project. Let's say add a project, and I'm going to call it, I don't know, dev department. Okay. So that's dev department. External connections. I don't have any other transit gateway set up, but I would select these here, whether it's a centralized or whatever. I'm skipping that step. Even external IP blocks, I'm just going to skip that step. And I'll say, okay, save it. And I'm going to say, do I want to continue? I'm going to say no. So I just created a project, okay? Now, let's go back into here. And you'll see it now. There's a new folder. NSX Manage Folders. When I open up, there you see my project. Let's go into NSX now. And let me close this. Let's go into that project, test dev. And then under VPCs, you don't see anything. Let's add a VPC in there, and I'll call this dev-VPC. Again, I'm going to notice it's complaining. I don't know how public address is and all that because I didn't set those up. But it should let me just continue just for the sake of doing this. Let me say go. And then, yes, I want to just continue and finish. There, I just created a VPC. Now, I didn't set up subnets or anything like that. But great. Let's go back into here. And you actually see there's the project. There's the VPC. Okay. If I right click on this, manage VMs, I can't do anything here. So these ones would be managed by your NSX managers, and these ones here would be in your default project. So you can still see the projects here, and I think you can even disable that as well if you don't want that happening. But maybe that's for another video. That's about it. I hope you found this beneficial. Leave comments and questions down below. And I got some more videos coming up, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks very much. Have a great day. Bye for now.